And it's also in terms of dealing with conflict. Notice we did the emotional jug first. Because if somebody is holding on to, level anger, fear, pain, sadness, disappointment, and that's leaking out or imploding or exploding, it can be very difficult to deal with even the smallest issue. Another aspect of preparing for the fair fight is to be able to own the ways you dirty fight. And not in a way of I'm bad or something's wrong with me, but becoming aware of sort of the ways that we've learned to deal with the world. When we're upset or disappointed or frustrated or in that confusion stage that I talked about at the beginning in terms of the stages of relationship. So when we're upset, are we likely to threaten? Are we likely to bully? Are we likely to make up things? So the dirty fighting worksheet is just an opportunity to look and see what are some of the ways that you leak when your jug starts to fill up. And then to compare your list with your partner to see if your perceptions of how you leak when your jug fills up or starts to fill up is similar to their perceptions. None of us have bad intentions. But if our partner is feeling bullied or threatened or criticized, even if that's not our intention, that's important information to be aware of that experience. And it may be because of what it reminds them of from other times in their life or other people in their lives, but we want to be aware of how we dirty fight before we start dealing with conflict and how our partner experiences that in us. So what are some examples of bullying?
This is how it's going to be, this is what we're going to do.
It's important to own that, to recognize that. Because these are behaviors that we've learned that may have helped us in other times in our life. But when we can recognize it, you can choose. Is that helping me have my dreams come true or getting in the way of that? Any really great blamers here?
Well, asking a question that implies it's your fault. What were you thinking?
Okay. Right. What about accusing? And some of these are very similar. There are really very fine nuances between accusing and blaming or withdrawing and stonewalling or the silent treatment.
I know that you knew what I was talking about. You're just pretending.
Right, that's good.
You're accusing him of knowing that you actually, that he understood what you were saying when in fact he probably didn't.
Dirty fighting can come in the form of active iron fist, which are the more active styles that generally people notice, or it can come in the form of the velvet glove. Those are things that people just slip and slide in there that are just as devastating, but they may not be noticed at first. So, and a lot of the best dirty fighters I've known, including myself when I've been particularly good at it, it's very subtle, but incredibly devastating. Put downs. Anybody who's really good at put downs?
Do you really want to eat that much?
That is your issue. You have the issue, not me.
Right? Ignoring can be the most devastating, at least acting like the other person doesn't even exist.
Cell phones help them
Cell phones help with that?
Yeah.
out. Sure, somebody's having to have a conversation,
Yeah.
the person picks up their cell phone, starts dealing with it.
I remember years ago when I was reading a survey that said most people who are holding their cell phones up are not talking to anybody.
There's a techie word for text stonewalling someone.
Yeah. You walk into restaurants today and you see a table of people. Everybody's got earphones on.
Last night at the restaurant, there was 4 people at the table next to us, and 3 of them were looking at their phones.
Yeah.
And the other guy was just kind of looking around and like,
Anybody really good at sarcasm?
That's kind of a question. If the whole family does it all the time, and it's just your way of communicating with a smile, is it really that bad?
If something's working, keep doing it. If it's helping and by working, I mean, if what you're doing is helping your dreams come true, whatever the dreams are for your life, that's great. You don't need to change anything. But I also go back to, the definition of insanity. If it's sabotaging the relationship that someone wants with their children or their spouse or other people who are on that island of our lives, then it's worth trying on something else and seeing what's possible. Threatening? Anybody really good at threatening?
Think about sneaking out of that window and you're going to come in with a broke leg.
Hey, Dad may be old, but hey, bring it up.
Y'all, keep it up. Christmas is going to be canceled.
If the word, if you're using the word, this is also important for the fair fight. If you're using words like always, never, it's very rare that something always or never happens. So in terms of dealing with conflict, it's better to focus on a specific instance. Maybe the specific thing you're focusing on happened 50 other times, but that doesn't really matter. Because what you really want to do is use the example of one specific instance to create something better for the future. If we're throwing in the kitchen sink, the other person's more likely just to get to the defensive instead of really be open to making things better. So what about the silent treatment? So it's very much like ignoring and withdrawing, but I know people that just give the silent treatment for months.
Oh, I can do that really good.
Yeah.
When I don't, ignoring is when you're not looking at them or whatever, or you're looking at the phone, but the silent treatment, I've done this with him to where he's actually speaking to me face to face and I'm just looking at him. Like,
Comes with a look.
yeah. I'm just looking at him like,
Is that the
I have no idea what you're
computer
saying.
stands?
Yeah, the message in that can be, if you tell me what you're upset about, or if you act in a way that I don't approve of, then you're just going to be invisible to me.
yeah.
You know, not for a moment, but maybe for weeks or months. And that becomes the end of confiding. Because then it's not, then people say, well, I don't want to go through that again, or I don't want to get threatened that way again. So we'll talk about sports, we'll talk about, the weather, we'll talk about the neighbors, we'll talk about everything. But the things that are really issues for us, because people don't want to go through that. When I've done work in high schools, and I've had a chance to work with thousands of kids in high schools, and we've asked them at one point in the class how their parents treat their fight, and to identify it. And then another point in the class, we asked them, their behaviors. It's almost always the same. That even though when they're talking about what they experienced from their parents, they talk about, the negative impact, how upsetting it was. When you ask them later about their own habits, and it just reinforces how much people learn from what they do. So we're going to take 10 minutes. You want to fill it, check off what you're aware of that you do, what you're aware of that your partner does, and what you think your partner will say you do. And then compare your list with each other. And if you're not here with a partner, pick someone to work with.